For 7 years, the people of Bali village in India experienced absolute terror. 436 innocent victims perished due to unimaginable cunning and brutality. Yes, it's the animal that holds the record for consuming the highest number of humans. Hello, my dear friends. Today, I won't take much of your time. Our episode is about my favorite creature, but before we begin, remember to hit the like button for the video. And if you're watching me for the first time, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive the most terrifying moments directly. On a cold afternoon in 1907, a little girl in a quiet Indian village went to a valley with her mother and friend to gather coconuts. Upon arrival, they eagerly climbed the trees, focusing on finishing their task before sunset. Songs and laughter filled the air, as was the innocent custom of the Indian people. But as the little girl finished collecting her first basket and began to descend, she lost her balance and felt something terrifying pulling her downward. She screamed at the top of her lungs, completely terrified, when she realized the identity of the creature grabbing her leg. It was the demon tiger, the devil of India, back once more to claim a new victim from the villagers. Panic and terror took over the scene. Everyone was paralyzed with fear in front of this living nightmare. The poor girl kept screaming and pleading for her mother and friend to save her from the dreadful fate. But her mother responded to her cries with even louder, more desperate screams. Though the empathetic sound had little effect, the beast, that cursed tiger, completed its task with brutal ferocity. The hunt was successful, and terror gripped the hearts while silence fell over the land after this gloomy night that would never be forgotten. And as for the poor girl, she became victim number 434 of the Champawat Tigress. You might be astonished, my friend, at the inability of humans to fend off a mere tiger. But the cold truth is that in the early 19th century, we were living in a completely different era. In India, even to this day, the confrontation between tigers and humans was so common that it resembled a continuous war between man and tiger. The war was especially fierce with the Bengal tigers, which reign as the most powerful and deadly beasts of nature ever known. Their bite force can reach up to 1,000 psi, with the largest and most lethal canines in the entire world of big cats. Their insane speed approaches nearly 40 miles per hour. All of this made them an opponent not to be underestimated. For humans in general, and particularly for the small Indian village at that time, specifically in the year 1900, within a poor village named Bali, which is entirely different from the famous city Bali in Indonesia, the nightmare manifested itself, the female tiger Champawat. Over a span of 3 whole years since her first appearance, she preyed on nearly 200 innocent souls, men, women, children, and the elderly alike. A truly unimaginable terror completely dominated the helpless villagers. Try to imagine the fear one lives in knowing they share the same neighborhood with such a terrifying and brutally powerful predator, a tiger that deliberately targets humans and considers them its only food source. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the immense fear and indignation those poor souls felt at that time. Isn't it natural to ask yourself where the government was during that period? Where were the police? The army? Any armed entity with even the simplest weapons to stand against this immense suffering? How could they, with such cold blood and dry hearts, leave the villagers to suffer under the weight of such unparalleled terror? The idea is that at that time, my friend, India was in the midst of dark turmoil, at the height of the struggle for independence from the brutal British occupation. The British had no regard for Indian lives whatsoever, which explains why the issue of the Champawat Tigress received little attention. Hunter after hunter failed repeatedly. The horrific truth is that Champawat was not just a powerful tiger but also terrifyingly smart, capable of setting skillful traps for her prey. You might think I am exaggerating, but even the Indian newspapers of the time confirmed the prowess of this fearsome tigress. After 7 full years of continuous terror, the shocking news arrived that the most famous big-game hunter, Jim Corbett, had decided to face this great challenge. By the year 1907, after 7 long, heavy years tainted with the scent of blood and endless fear among the people, the renowned predator hunter finally arrived, the professional hunter Jim Corbett. At that time, Jim was a young, inexperienced man who had yet to gain the expertise that came with harsh years later. He had little to his name but his shaky first steps toward his destiny as a hunter of wild animals. However, he held a rare principle to which he clung fiercely: he would undertake this daunting task for humanity alone, without any financial compensation. This advanced vision ignited hope in the hearts of the villagers, as he believed that any financial reward might bring the curse of failure upon the previous hunters. And naturally, it seems his belief was correct. A few days after Jim arrived in the village, he witnessed firsthand the terror and fear that plagued its miserable inhabitants. For 4 consecutive days, Corbett tried to set traps and locate Champawat's lair, working entirely alone at first. No one dared to leave their huts. But as food supplies dwindled, some village men moved to assist Corbett in tracking down the ferocious tigress. The situation took an even more horrifying turn when the tigress presented Corbett with a golden opportunity. She had claimed her 435th victim, a woman in her 40s, who, coincidentally, was the sister of one of her previous victims. Don't be surprised, my friend. This beast left behind terrifying legends and tragic stories for each of her victims, as if she were exacting revenge for an unknown sin. Corbett was startled when several villagers approached him, telling him they had seen Champawat dragging her victim through the trees to an unknown destination. What was even more terrifying was that they saw the woman still alive, screaming for help as the beast carried her in its jaws. Fearful and panic-stricken, they did not follow her but decided to inform Corbett as quickly as possible. Like a flash, Corbett grabbed his rifle and dashed toward the location indicated by the frightened villagers, followed by some men to assist. Since the attack had just happened, bloodstains on either side of the path provided a gruesome trail confirming the tigress's whereabouts. Finally, Corbett reached the site and began hearing the ominous sounds of her movements among the trees. To make matters worse, night was beginning to fall, casting its dark veil over the village. His chances of hunting her decreased significantly with the setting sun, so he decided to leave before becoming the next victim. However, Corbett returned the next day with a more practical plan to catch Champawat. Instead of entering her well-known territory, he decided to lure her to a location more advantageous for him. He chose a valley below a hill and asked the villagers to gather and create a massive noise to distract and force the tigress into the valley. The plan worked. Champawat emerged, and her terrifying roar echoed. Fear spread again, and Champawat was close. Either she would die by Corbett's hand, or she would claim many more victims. When Corbett spotted her, he fired the first shot, hitting her squarely in the hindquarters. Champawat tried to escape, and Corbett fired a second shot, but this time it missed. After confirming that the first shot had wounded her, Corbett bravely pursued the tigress, abandoning his caution. He reached a massive rock and was stunned to find Champawat in front of him, exhausted but with a defiant look, as if preparing for one last attack. Before she could execute her plan, Corbett fired the final shot, hitting the tigress directly in the mouth, shattering her prominent fang and causing her to fall dead instantly. Corbett, the hunter who successfully completed his suicide mission, collapsed to his knees next to Champawat, looked at her lower jaw, and began to cry. What? He cries? Corbett, who hunted the deadly monster and saved the villagers, started to cry? Yes, this actually happened when Corbett noticed a deep gash below Champawat's jaw. As an expert in hunting wild animals, he realized that this old wound was caused by a bullet from a cruel and cowardly hunter. This injury deprived it of the ability to hunt its usual prey, forcing it to attack humans to find food. It was also said that this tigress holds grudges. Perhaps she remembered the harm done to her and decided to take revenge. Thus, Champawat, perhaps the most dangerous tigress in history, may have committed all these crimes out of a desire to take revenge on humans after she was injured by a brutal and cowardly hunter. Brutal for attacking an animal that had in no way harmed him, and cowardly for not completing the hunt properly. He leaves the poor villagers at the mercy of a monster bent on revenge. This theory, my friends, is not a defense of a predator that took the lives of hundreds of humans, but rather the perspective of the beast's killer himself. Nevertheless, whether Champawat was a victim or a culprit, her story remains undeniably the most tragic and terrifying among the tales of animals that have terrorized people. And you, my friend, what do you think? I genuinely want to know your opinion and your answer to the question, was Champawat, the tigress that made history by setting this terrifying record of victims, merely a victim of poaching? Or was she a predator that received the punishment she deserved?